Good afternoon and welcome to BizTech's Asian Midday Market Watch. Kelvin Wong, Senior Market Analyst at Oanda, is our guest today on the 4th of August. Kelvin, good afternoon.
Hey, hi, good afternoon, Brian, and good to see you again. And as well, happy Friday.
Now, Kelvin, we're going to take a look at the numbers before we get your insights. But first, let's take a look at crypto markets. Uh, Bitcoin is at 29,186. It's up 0.19%. Ethereum is at 1,834. It's down 0.13%. Moving across to regional stock markets, we've got the Straits Times Index, where you're at, which is down 0.19%. Bursa Malaysia is up 0.24%. Shanghai is up 0.42%. The ASX All Ordinaries is down 0.24%. The Nikkei is down 0.15%. The Hang Seng is up 1.01%. And rounding up the numbers, we've got the Kospi, which is just up marginally 0.03%. Calvin, your views on market performance in the first half of the day?
Yeah, of course, if you look at the current situation for the Asia benchmark stock indices, I would say it's rather mixed. One thing positive that's coming out from the China proxy, that means the Hang Seng benchmark indices, has been this potential ongoing, we call it bullish rhetoric from China top policymakers for them to actually engage in much more stimulus in the various sector of China. So there's one coming out on this on today morning is that there are certain Chinese local province or city, I would say, they're going to relax the housing property rules in an effort to actually boost the current lethargic market environment in the property sector. So that causes a bit of positive feedback look into the China proxy as well as the China stock market.
Now, I want to move on to the US, where overnight the earnings for some of the major players have come out, including Apple and Amazon.
Yes,
Give us an insight into the results and what
sure,
this means
sure.
for investors.
Yeah, definitely. So, traders or investors will be paying very much attention to Apple's and Amazon. Why? Because they are actually the top five biggest weighted cap in the S&P 500 as well as the Nasdaq 100. So, do not forget, Apple is the highest weight in Nasdaq 100. Amazon will be, I think, the third largest weight. So, let's start with the earnings of Apple first. So, Apple's actually is pretty negative in terms of the share price section. So, what Apple did over here is they announced right after the US session closed. So after hours trading, Apple is down negative 2%. Okay, that's after hours, not because the earnings announced after the hours, right? So negative 2%. So one thing quite in terms of lackluster will be their revenue growth. So revenue growth came actually negative 1.4% year on year. So that is actually the third consecutive quarter of decline, straight quarter of decline, dragged down by key Apple products like iPhone, Mac, and iPad. And even though the Apple don't give a kind of a very ballpark, direct, what kind of explicit figure of earnings guidance in the next quarter, but however, during the earnings call, its CFO actually mentioned that very likely the next quarter ending September, they're actually expecting a kind of another round of lackluster negative decline in sales, what we see in the previous quarter for Apple. So that actually kind of a dose of optimism in Apple shares in the intraday on a very short-term basis that give rise to this negative 2%.
Okay, but however, Kelvin, there's also some optimism there around the rise in services revenue.
Yes, precisely. So the crown jewel over here is that that's why the services revenue, the App Store, is kind of pretty sticky in terms of optimism. So revenue on certain segment of it is pretty much robust, double-digit growth. So in fact, if you look at the situation for the bundle it as we call it services revenue. So services revenue is actually up 8% year on year. So because of this strong robustness in the services revenue, as well as they put called other products segment, which is also up 2%. So that actually causes Apple's earnings per share to beat expectation. So coming at 1.26 versus expectation of 1.19.
Now, then looking ahead, of course, this week, all eyes are on the US non-farm payroll for July numbers out later tonight, our time in
Yes.
Asia.
Yep.
What is the expectation from markets?
Okay, for markets over here is that the market is actually expecting a rather lukewarm number for this non-farm payroll data. So market is expecting a bit of softness down towards 200K jobs entered for the month of July. So that's down by 209K, down by 9,000K for the month of June. So what we could see over here is that if this expectation came within what market is expecting, potentially, right, we could see a bit of dollar strength weakness, a dollar strength setback, which actually took shape yesterday, right after the hawkish bite from Bank of England. So traders and I will be watching these numbers very closely. So if we start to see a figure coming in above expectation, especially around 250K, that could actually potentially kickstart another round of dollar strength that is had started to take shape since the start of this week, together with the rise of these longer-term US Treasury yields. So, key technical support I'm looking at for these two major pair, for the euro dollar will be at 1.09. Sterling versus the dollar will be at 1.2630.
On that note, Kelvin, thank you very much for your insights. Thanks for coming on the show.
My pleasure, Brian.
We've been speaking to Kelvin Wong, Senior Market Analyst at Oanda on BizTech's Asian Midday Market Watch. I'm Brian Fernandez. Check out this show on our website, www.biztech.asia, as well as our syndication partners, TV stations, radio stations, and websites. Thanks a lot for tuning in.